Welcome to Cheating Tales, where we uncover.
Wife cheated throughout 20 years of marriage. Today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy it! Stacy Lipton, smiling, drove her BMW on the highway in Atlanta. She anticipated having to return home a bit later than planned, but she attributed it to the well-known traffic jams in the city. The delay in departure seemed like wasted time to her, blaming it on the Atlanta traffic. Nick, almost 10 years younger than Stacy, was not only a wonderful lover but also an excellent conversationalist. His attractiveness and ability to quickly recover after intimate encounters were evident. As she drove away from the city, Stacy's thoughts gradually drifted away from Nick. Despite his attractiveness, there were places reserved in her heart for Jonathan and Casey, her daughter. Stacy looked forward to spending time with them, especially now that her satisfaction was complete. She was aware of her moods and planned to be patient and loving towards Jonathan upon returning home. Her smile showed that she felt like she had the best of both worlds. Upon arriving home, Stacy noticed her husband's pickup truck was missing from the garage, which struck her as strange and unexpected. This caused a shift in her mood. She hoped Jonathan would return home to greet her after her long trip. However, the house was empty. While pondering where Jonathan and Casey might be, Stacy suddenly remembered that her phone had been turned off since dinner. Her thoughts were distracted, and she didn't even notice that no one had called her. She decided to turn on her phone, returning to reality once again. Jonathan congratulated himself once again on having succeeded in executing a simple but brilliant plan to please and surprise his wife. He had known about her planned conference in Atlanta for months. Stacy visited them twice a year. As fate would have it, this conference fell on his 20th wedding anniversary. A few weeks earlier, Jonathan had been approached about building a large vacation home for a family in Atlanta. Once the business portion of the meeting was completed and Jonathan felt comfortable with the client, Boyd Drake, he expressed an idea that had only recently formed in his head. "Boyd, on the 10th of next month, our anniversary, my wife will be attending a conference in downtown Atlanta. I would like to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a good restaurant somewhere near her hotel. To top it off, I bought a pearl necklace that I would like to present to her at the table when she eats dinner. My daughter should organize this for you," Boyd said. "She's in college now and knows all the good places in the city. She could see to it that the necklace ends up in your wife's hands. It sounds like you're planning on being lucky when your wife comes home. Why don't you just go to Atlanta with her and deliver it yourself? I've proposed in the past, but Stacy insists she's too busy to spend time with me. She will have a late dinner and return to the hotel as soon as possible to rest. The next day, I have obligations here, and to travel this far only to be ignored seems a little stupid," Jonathan reasoned. "I have another idea," Jonathan added. "Suppose I buy your daughter and her friend dinner if she agrees to sit at the table next to Stacy and send me a live video on Facebook. I'd love to see Stacy's surprised look when she opens the necklace box. I'll give you my daughter's number, and you can call or text her to arrange everything," Boyd replied. "I'm sure she'll be happy to help get this done." Jonathan had several pizzas delivered to his home for a party he was throwing to celebrate his 20th anniversary. He invited his parents, Stacy's parents, his brother and sister-in-law, and Stacy's younger divorced sister. They all expected to see Stacy in real time when he surprised her with an anniversary gift. Jonathan's 16-year-old daughter, Casey, was also there with several of her friends. Jonathan had everything set up so they could watch the video on the big screen TV. Boyd's daughter will sit as close to Stacy as she can without arousing her suspicions. She will send videos to me via Facebook Live. She paid the waiter to deliver the wrapped gift after Stacy and her coworker Sue ordered food. We'll see Stacy's reaction in real time. This will be the best anniversary ever, considering we are so far apart, Jonathan explained with a happy smile. I set everything up so that no sound will be transmitted from our side, so feel free to make comments, including what a great idea I had. Who is this guy with his mother? Casey asked as Stacy came into view holding hands with a handsome young man. Didn't you say she would be with Sue? I don't know who he is, Jonathan admitted. He seems to be a pretty close friend. Stacy's father simply made a harumph sound and frowned at Jonathan's statement as the couple took their seats. Everyone gathered around Jonathan's TV could easily hear the conversation. It's very nice that your husband paid for our dinner this evening, the unknown man remarked with a grin. I will do my best to make this anniversary unforgettable. At least for you, it will be even better than your honeymoon. Then you better order a steak, Stacy replied with a grin. You will need strength. My honeymoon was epic. Is it true? The man asked. Did you have a lover then, or did your husband actually manage to ring the chimes? Jonathan did a great job, thanks for asking, Stacy replied. You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, not counting Jonathan, of course. Luckily for me, he started to slow down. The good news is this, you'll have a much better 20th anniversary tonight than most women. I'll take care of it. Maybe we've seen enough, sister, Stacy suggested nervously. This is not entirely fair. Stacy has no idea what we're watching or listening to. Why don't you turn it off, Jonathan? We don't want to miss Stacy's reaction when she receives her necklace, do we? Asked the determined but very red-faced Jonathan. Let's watch this train wreck for a little while longer, Jonathan insisted. While the couple was ordering, everyone heard Stacy call her companion Nick. As the waiter left with the menu, another waiter appeared with a nicely wrapped package. Look, Jonathan must have delivered me a wedding anniversary gift, Stacy exclaimed in delight, tearing open the packaging. Isn't she beautiful? Stacy asked, looking at the string of pearls. Could you fasten it on me? Certainly, just lean towards me, Nick said, carefully fastening the necklace. Having completed his task, he quickly ran his hands over Stacy's chest. Your husband is so romantic. You're lucky to have such a handsome man, remarked an elderly woman sitting at the next table. True on both counts, Nick agreed with a smile. She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend. Stacy glared at Nick, but the older woman simply laughed at his comment. I gave you a pearl necklace last night, which I think looks much better on you than this, Nick joked, leaning down and kissing Stacy on the lips. That's the difference between a husband and a lover, Stacy said with a sexy grin. Husbands give us jewelry, and lovers give us climaxes. Sorry, but I can't do it anymore, the beautiful red-haired girl, who must have been Boyd's daughter, whispered as she turned off her phone. I should have stopped earlier, but I was so stunned that I went into shock. I'm so sorry it turned out this way. I will definitely erase everything from my phone. I have to go. The TV turned off, and everyone sat in stunned silence. One of Casey's friends was the first to speak. It's already late. We'd better leave. See you tomorrow at school if I even go, Casey replied, with tears in her eyes. Dad, is it okay if I go home to my friends? I feel like I need to be with them now. Of course, honey. I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive carefully, girls, Jonathan said, his throat practically whispering due to how dry it was. I don't know what to say, Stacy's mother began. I think we got the Jonathan impression about what was happening. Stacy loves you, Jonathan, and is ready to give her life for Casey. Don't do anything rash. Jonathan's other guests mostly repeated these words as they quietly discussed the situation. After a few more minutes of calm discussion, Jonathan made his decision. I have something to think about. Everyone, please find a way out yourself and give me some time to be alone and think about my options. When everyone had left, Jonathan took out his suitcase and began to pack his things. Stacy was surprised by the number of messages she'd received and calls she'd missed since she'd turned off her phone the previous evening. As she looked through the messages, her heart sank. Her sister and mother demanded to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They insisted that she had broken Jonathan's heart, and Casey was also very upset. Her mother and sister sent her at least a dozen messages each. Stacy checked her messages to see if she had anything from Jonathan and found that she didn't. How did her family find out about Nick, and how much do they really know? Where are Jonathan and Casey? How can she get out of the hole she finds herself in? She needed to find out what exactly Jonathan knew and also what he simply suspected. Mother, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night, Stacy began as calmly as she could. I see you tried to call me. Is there anything Jonathan? Only if you think the loss of your husband, the alienation and embarrassment of your daughter, the disgrace of your parents, and the behavior of an inveterate can be considered Jonathan. I'm guessing it doesn't bother you too much, otherwise, you wouldn't be enjoying a damn pearl necklace from your boyfriend, her mother ranted. Jonathan gave me a string of pearls for our anniversary, Stacy countered. Why should this upset you? Your father and I have seen enough old adult films to understand what your boyfriend meant when he said you were wearing his pearl necklace, Stacy's not so straightforward mother said. Mother, what makes you think I would do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend? Stacy asked, fear tying a knot in her gut. Don't play games with me. I am not stupid, her mother growled. Jonathan invited us to watch you open his 20th anniversary present at the restaurant. He booked a table for you and your colleague. I think her name was Sue. We have seen this whole vile story. Your husband treats you like a queen, and you don't respect him. Husbands give jewelry, and lovers give climaxes, I think you said. Did you hear me say that? Asked a shocked Stacy. How is this possible? Jonathan asked some friend's daughter to do some sort of live broadcast from her phone. He wanted us to see how happy you would be with his gift, then we were all going to call and congratulate you on your anniversary, the mother said sadly. Looks like this might be your last anniversary, at least with Jonathan. Maybe you'll meet your favorite boy again when things calm down. Mother, you know I love Jonathan. That other guy means nothing to me. It was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting boring, Stacy insisted. Oh, this changes everything, her mother said sarcastically. Jonathan will feel much better knowing that his wife is not and that she was just bored. I assume you left your puzzle at home, Mom. There's no use calling me names. How can I convince Jonathan that he is the only man I love? You didn't even convince me, so I'd say you have some work to do, the mother replied. Watching you with that man is the worst thing I've ever seen. I highly doubt Jonathan found it better. After talking with her mother, Stacy thought about her situation. Her entire family had seen and heard everything she and Nick had discussed at dinner the night before. Remembering her conversation with Nick, Stacy realized how bad her situation was. She decided to call Casey. Casey, where are you? Stacy asked when Casey answered her call. I'm with Morgan. She's trying to console me because my family has broken up, Stacy's daughter replied. We are not breaking up. Please come home, and we can talk about this. Where's your father? Stacy asked uncertainly. He moved to a cottage on the lake, Casey answered. I don't think he wants to see you. He was so happy last night when he invited everyone to watch you open your gift. You practically tore his heart out when you showed up with your lover instead of Sue. Please come home, Stacy repeated, trying to think of what she could say to Jonathan to get his forgiveness. After finishing her conversation with Casey, Stacy began to look around the house. She noticed that a laptop and several filing cabinets were missing from Jonathan's office. The closet in his bedroom was completely empty as Hubbard's mother's closet. Stacy fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house, noting what items were missing. Jonathan didn't take a single photograph of her presence. This fact seemed especially depressing. Looking for something to take her mind off her crumbling marriage, Stacy began cooking dinner for Casey. By the time Casey walked through the door, she had managed to prepare a small meal. Casey was sullen and only spoke to Stacy when asked a direct question. Even then, Casey kept her answers as short as possible. Stacy admitted to herself that her daughter had good reasons to be angry with her. But she hoped that over time, the hostility would, if not completely disappear, at least lessen. The next morning at dawn, Stacy walked into their lake house to find Jonathan slumped uncomfortably and passed out on the small couch. Numerous empty beer cans were strewn across the floor. Jonathan, honey, we need to talk. Wake up, please, Stacy said. Jonathan slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He gradually stood up and, without saying a word, headed to the bathroom. Stacy decided to make some coffee while she waited for her husband to return. A few minutes later, Jonathan, fresh from his shower, returned to the kitchen, and Stacy placed a mug in Jonathan of him. Stacy hoped that Jonathan would initiate the difficult conversation, but that hope soon faded. It was obvious that Jonathan had no intention of starting a conversation. Jonathan, I'm sorry this happened. I love pearls. It was a wonderful gift that I will always cherish. It's a pity that I didn't know that you would pass everything on to your family. It would be great if you told me about this, Stacy said, hoping to open a dialogue. You, was all Jonathan could answer, as he was infuriated by Stacy's attempt to make him out to be the abuser. Stacy was surprised and hurt by Jonathan's answer. In all their years of marriage, he had never spoken to her in a disrespectful manner. This was clear evidence of the pain she had caused him. That won't help, Stacy answered calmly. Tell me, what should I do to fix everything? You are the only man I have ever loved. That hasn't changed. Together, we can deal with this. Tell me, what problem exactly do you want to solve? The problem is that I surprised you with an anniversary gift in a nice restaurant, where I booked a table for you and a friend. The problem is that my client's daughter agreed to send a video of your reaction in real time. The problem is that I mistakenly decided that you would appreciate this gift. Explain to me what the problem is so that I understand what you are talking about, Jonathan said calmly. You know what the problem is, Stacy insisted. Last night, you saw me and Nick in the restaurant. I know that you have dinner with others from time to time. Why do you think that's the problem? Jonathan asked. You know perfectly well why this is a problem. I told you I was going to dinner with Sue, but I actually went with Nick. You overheard our conversation and found out that we slept together. This is the problem we need to work on, Stacy admitted, blushing. Realizing that in her current situation it would not be possible to go on the offensive, she added, just to be clear, is the problem that I, along with your entire family, overheard your conversation, or is the problem that you had sex with another man? The problem is my behavior, admitted a blushing Stacy. You were just trying to be nice to me on our anniversary. You didn't do anything, Jonathan. Okay, we're making progress. Now tell me, why did you cheat on me behind my back? For how long and with how many men did it happen? Jonathan demanded. Is Casey my biological daughter? Is there any chance that her father was the postman? Jonathan's offensive question provoked Stacy's reaction. There's no need to be vulgar or offensive. Of course, Casey is your daughter. Nick has been my only lover since we started dating. Your comment about how many men I've had and Casey's father being a mailman was just cruel. I'm having a hard time understanding your logic, Jonathan countered. You admit that you are a cheater, but you insist that there be a line drawn as to how big of a cheater you are. You want me to be polite and understanding, not to mention gullible when you tell me that you're one man's lover. Are you proud that you haven't cheated on me that often? By the way, how long have you been sleeping with Pretty Nick, and how often? You forgot to mention these important facts when you began to refuse the title of city mayor. This was the third conference we've slept together at, Stacy admitted. Tears in her eyes, as she finally began to feel the depth of Jonathan's anger and humiliation. Besides you, he's the only man I've been with since we got married 20 years ago. It will be 2 nights together at each of the 3 conferences, said Jonathan. Have you ever had sex with him anywhere else? No, Stacy stated. This happened a total of 6 times, and I deeply regret it. I owe you an apology. Are you saying that a young stud like Nick was only capable of 1 time a night with a beauty like you? Asked Jonathan. He never had you more than once a night. Who cares? Asked a discouraged Stacy. We probably did it 3 times every night. Now for the big question, Jonathan announced. Why did you have sex with another man? Was sex with me so thankless, so mundane, so pathetic that you needed to find a younger, more satisfying lover? Of course not. I was bored, and he pursued me tirelessly. I turned out to be weak. It's not about you or our sex life, it's my vanity, maybe a midlife crisis. He doesn't mean anything to me, I swear, Stacy explained. It's clear you had sex with a man who meant nothing to you, Jonathan repeated. Did you have sex with Mr. Jenkins, the guy who lives down the street and wears those ridiculous shirts? Of course not. I barely know him, but I find him repulsive, Stacy continued to defend herself. But you just told me that you sleep with men you don't love and who mean nothing to you. Jenkins fits that description, so why don't you have sex with him? Jonathan pressed. I didn't say that I sleep with every man who means nothing to me, Stacy explained, upset. I slept with Nick because he is handsome, courteous, and successful. He was following me. Do you want to say that you will only cheat on me with handsome, successful men who pursue you? Apart from a few of these guys, are you a faithful wife? Jonathan questioned. If you don't love the men you have sex with, doesn't that mean you don't love me? No, I'm telling you that I made a terrible mistake, and it will never happen again, Stacy said with feeling. I love you, but not Nick. How do I know this? Jonathan asked quietly. At our wedding and several other times over the years, you promised to be faithful to me. You are a beautiful woman, handsome, successful men will always pursue you. I can't trust you. I can't even give you the great sex you love so much. Don't ever think like that, Jonathan. I love sex with you. It's special and makes me feel loved, Stacy replied. How did Nick make you feel that you kept coming back to him? Jonathan asked softly. Dirty, used, not like a mother or wife. It was the Jonathan-ness that got me hooked, not love, Stacy admitted, clearly embarrassed. What did you do with him, and how? Asked Jonathan quietly. What does it matter? I love only you, Stacy protested, clearly embarrassed. I have something to think about. You stand here and tell me that you love me, not him, but you had dirty sex with him. It's hard for me to accept that you are willing to do much more for a person who means nothing to you than for the person you love, Jonathan reasoned. You haven't told me to please your manhood below the belt for a long time. I wasn't so much against it, as I thought you'd lost interest. Yes, what kind of married guy would want to get this from his wife, especially when she gives it out like candy? You told me on our honeymoon that I would be the only man you loved, Jonathan recalled. You and Cute must have had a lot of fun with me. Everything was Jonathan, he never talked about you. I would never allow that, Stacy insisted. You seem to have forgotten that I heard several minutes of your conversation. This insulted me several times, and you went along with it. Remember how I slowed down that he will give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives? You didn't object, did you? Why are we even wasting time here? Jonathan suddenly demanded. You found someone new. I accept it. It looks like you should too. Why pretend that you want to stay married? It's obvious that you didn't enjoy being my wife, and let's not even talk about bad sex. You are beautiful, successful, and smart, and I bring nothing to the table. It was only a matter of time before you started looking for something better. Congratulations, you found it. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Jonathan, we can't let this discussion end this badly. We have to discuss everything and find a way back, Stacy tearfully begged. You can ask your lawyer to talk to my lawyer. It's over between us, Stacy. I'm going to divorce you. You left me no choice. That day, Stacy went to work but was found in the break room by an angry Sue. Why did Jonathan ask me about going with you to Atlanta for a conference? You know very well that I stopped writing them after you decided to spend your nights with Romeo from the Chico office. I don't want you to use me as a cover for your infidelity. Did Jonathan call you, and what did you tell him? Stacy said dejectedly, the truth. I didn't go to the last 2 conferences. I was under the impression that you told him that we were going to share a room and spend time at the conference together. I don't like being used like that. That won't be a problem anymore. Jonathan learned everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me, Stacy admitted. What other outcome could you expect? Sue demanded. No decent man could accept this level of disrespect. I was too damn stupid and self-centered to even think about Jonathan finding out about this, Stacy answered frankly. He moved out. Don't you think you made a choice when you slept with that nasty bastard from Chicago? Sue asked a little softer. I'm sorry you lost Jonathan, but I warned you that this would happen if you continued like this. It wasn't me who told him, if that's what you're thinking. I know, Sue. I owe you an apology. I abused your friendship. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I don't deserve a man like Jonathan. After finding out that Stacy was cheating on him, Jonathan took the day off from work. He was determined to move all his belongings to the lake house before Stacy returned home. He didn't want to listen to her reasons and excuses for cheating. He hated the thought of life without Stacy, but he knew he could never forgive her callous disregard for his feelings nor her ambivalence about loyalty and respect. Her unexpected visit the next morning simply revealed a huge emotional chasm dividing them. She didn't say anything that could help him forgive her betrayal. He made an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. The next day, he was preparing to leave the office for a meeting with a divorce lawyer when he received a new email. It was from Stacy. He wondered if he should read it or just delete it. After internal discussion, he opened the letter. In her typical fashion, Stacy tackled the problem head-on. He felt nothing but despair when he read her message. "Jonathan, I know I really screwed up this time. I was so stupid that I thought you would never know, and my actions would never hurt you. I was Jonathan. Lying and cheating destroy marriages, even if one partner doesn't know it's happening. You deserve so much more. I have never wanted anything in my life as much as I want you to forgive me, but I will not challenge any of your actions regarding our marriage. I have lost my right to participate in your decisions. I love you and wish you all the best. You are a wonderful man, husband, and father. This is all entirely on my conscience. I accept this truth, although I feel bad that I did this to us." Jonathan fought back tears as he read Stacy's confession and her plea for forgiveness. It was like her to accept blame for her actions when she had time to think about the situation. She was a Jonathan woman, requiring the best from both others and herself. He felt empty and saw no reason to answer the letter. He had nothing more to say. After that morning, when Stacy arrived at Jonathan's lake house, her only source of information about Jonathan was Casey. On Friday afternoon, Casey called Stacy to say she was going to her dad's cabin for the weekend. Jonathan would bring her home on Sunday evening. Stacy realized that this was how her life would continue. She spent a miserable weekend thinking about how much she had screwed up her life. She had no idea how to correct her mistake or even if it was possible to correct it. Had she completely ruined her once happy marriage? Returning home on Sunday evening, Casey looked rather gloomy. "Dad decided to divorce you. He cannot live with someone who has lost all respect for him. I saw him cry several times this weekend. I've never seen this before in my entire life. Do you have any idea how much you offended him? Your boyfriend is probably a lot better than your dad," Casey said. "He's not my boyfriend, and he's no match for your father," Stacy replied, shocked. "It was a huge mistake, and I deeply regret it. Your father is the best man I have ever known. Forgive both Dad and me for being skeptical," Casey replied. "This isn't the first time you've slept with this bastard, right? You've been deceiving us for years, haven't you?" Casey asked angrily. Stacy realized it was time to stop lying to her family. "I slept with him at 2 conferences before this last one. It was Jonathan, and I apologize," Stacy confessed. "Was it Jonathan? That's putting it mildly, don't you think, Mom?" Casey objected angrily. "You betrayed your father in the worst possible way. Didn't you vow to be faithful when you married him? Did you cross your fingers at that moment, hoping it wouldn't count? I know you're upset with me, but not as much as I am. Your father is a wonderful man and a great father, you know it. What I did doesn't mean I think less of him. I acted very stupidly," Stacy admitted sadly. "As you say," Casey stated and went to her room. When Stacy returned to work, things turned to normal. She and Casey barely spoke to each other. Her life raft was her job. Everything there remained normal except for Sue's cold attitude towards her. She went to Casey's school events but usually sat alone, unless her mom came with her. This was the only time she saw Jonathan. He always sat as far away from her as possible, and the other parents quickly noticed this. It soon became known that they were getting a divorce. Stacy periodically heard fathers, both single and married, make lewd remarks and suggestions. It was quite obvious that the rumor of Stacy's infidelity had spread throughout the community. Jonathan threw himself into his business. This was the silver lining of the whole fiasco. The Jonathan was that Stacy would get half the business. His lawyer suggested several tactics that could reduce Stacy's share of the business, but Jonathan refused to listen. If it weren't for her, we would have nothing to share. I'm not going to deny the facts. Stacy worked next to me and even gave part of her salary to keep us afloat when we first took over the family business, Jonathan insisted. Stacy was very surprised when her lawyer explained to her how Jonathan was giving her half of his ownership of the business. A few years earlier, when Jonathan was going through a cash flow crisis, the company was bought by Jonathan's best friend, Dan. Dan was a silent partner who owned a third of the company. Having ceded half of their property to Stacy, Jonathan found himself in a vulnerable position. He owned and controlled only a third of the business. "Tell Jonathan this is too much," Stacy insisted to her lawyer. "He was the one who devoted all his time and energy to the business. If he insists on giving me a share, tell him that I agree to 1/10 of what we own. He will maintain control without possible disputes." Jonathan was nothing if not stubborn. When the snow melted the following spring, Stacy became a single woman again and the third owner of Lipton Enterprises. She couldn't even convince Jonathan to talk to her on the phone. He completely cut her out of his life. Casey told Stacy that she wanted to spend the summer between her junior and senior years of high school at a lake house with her father. Stacy knew this was another attempt by Casey to punish her, but she accepted that she had earned her daughter's scorn. Jonathan, for his part, was delighted. He developed plans to almost double the size of the cabin, owning a construction company. He easily completed the construction by the end of July. It was now a 3-bedroom lake house. Each bedroom had its own bathroom and a good view of the lake. It was a completely modernized and comfortable house. The first weekend in August, Jonathan hosted an open house for his friends and neighbors at the lake. All of Casey's friends were invited. One of them brought with her an older cousin whom Jonathan couldn't help but notice. She had a striking blonde look that was complemented very well by a rather modest 2-piece swimsuit. During the day, Jonathan noticed that this girl was near him most of the time. She laughed at his jokes and flirted with him every chance she got. "Well, Dad, are you trying to get into a little bikini, Patty?" Casey asked one day when they were alone in the kitchen. "Of course not," Jonathan protested. "She can't be older than 25, and I haven't decided to start dating yet." "She's 27 and seems very interested in you," Casey replied with a knowing smile. "She asks how long you've been single, how old you are, what you do for a living, everything women want to know about potential husbands. I just met her today." "Don't even think about mentioning the word marriage to me," Jonathan replied. "I tried once, and that was enough. I'm not hinting at anything other than that she seems interested. I wouldn't mind if you dated her. She's pretty sweet, and you need someone to help you forget your mom from what I've seen. Patty is in no hurry to get married. I think she's working on her career now, but this does not mean that she doesn't like male communication." "Thanks for enlightening me," Jonathan joked to his daughter. "This girl is too attractive to be interested in an old guy like me, but thank you for your trust. I appreciate your faith in me." Stacy's company occupied the top 2 floors of an office building in the business district. At the end of the same block was a very popular Italian bistro. She used to have lunch there every Thursday with a few of her friends from work. Because she kept an informal lunch schedule, she often saw the same people eating lunch at the same time. Stacy and her coworkers became friends with employees of several other companies located in her building. One afternoon, the bistro was unusually crowded, and Stacy's group was unable to get a table. One of the employees at Benson Advertising, located on the 2nd floor of her building, invited her group to join them at a large table. They quickly accepted the invitation. After everyone said their first and last names as an introduction, the conversation began. One of the women on the advertising team was particularly attractive and very friendly. Stacy found herself enjoying the young woman's good humor. She smiled as the other ladies began to tease the woman. "We don't all have a rich guy with a big house on Lake Henry," the woman Stacy knew as Mary teased. "It must be nice to wake up with the morning sun reflecting off the lake." "Yes," the young woman agreed, "especially with a handsome guy who gently caresses me. Getting out of bed is such a hassle. If this is the guy who picked you up after work on Thursday, then I can see why it might be a problem," another woman said. "He looks a little older than you, but he seems to be in good shape. He has all the hair and is quite plain looking." "Jonathan is all that and more," the young woman offered, smiling widely. "He's a really good guy and a really good lover." Stacy's friend immediately asked the very question Stacy didn't even want to consider. "You're not talking about Jonathan Lipton, are you?" "Do you know Jonathan?" asked the young beauty before adding, "You have to admit, he looks good." "Heck, a great guy, but he used to be Stacy's husband," her colleague said. "I think we should change the subject." "Don't be so dramatic," Stacy insisted, leaning toward the young woman and extending her hand. "I'm Stacy Lipton." "I didn't catch your name." "Patty Lawson." "His ex-wife was beautiful, but I thought he was probably blinded by love," Patty admitted. "It turns out he didn't do you justice." "I hope you won't be upset that I'm living with Jonathan now." "I certainly can't blame you or him for that matter," Stacy answered honestly. "You are a beautiful young woman with an amazing figure. I can easily understand why Jonathan liked you. I wonder why Casey never told me anything about you. I can't speak for Casey, but I want to say that you raised your daughter well. She is very smart, attentive, and also beautiful, just like her mother. I really like it when she visits us," Patty concluded that evening. Stacy questioned Casey while they were having dinner. "Why didn't you tell me that your father has a beautiful girlfriend who came to live with him? This is something that would interest me." "Honestly, Mom, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." "I know how you feel about Dad," Casey replied. "I'm still upset that you cheated on him, but I don't want to make you unhappy because of your bad choices. Patty is actually good to Dad. He finally seems happy again. This may surprise you, but I'm glad to hear that Jonathan is happy. He's a wonderful person and deserves to be with a woman who loves him, even if it's not me," Stacy responded. "I don't think she directly loves Dad, but she really likes him. She made it clear that her career comes first for the next few years. I want to achieve great success in marketing." "Aren't you going to start dating, Mom? Do you keep in touch with your boyfriend from conferences? Do you think you can get along with him?" Casey asked. "Nick? Not the person I would look for in a relationship," Stacy admitted. "He is superficial, slightly rude, selfish, and vain. I never thought of it as anything more than entertainment. It turned out that he made my life hell, although I knew what I was doing. I shouldn't blame him for my weakness. Are you interested in anyone?" Casey asked. "You're still beautiful. I've noticed how some fathers and teachers look at you and go out of their way to be polite to you at school events. Honestly, I think Jonathan ruined me for other men," Stacy replied with a sad smile. "The reason for our divorce is known to most people in the area. It makes women sympathize with your father and men think of me as an easy target. It was probably easy for Nick, but I won't repeat that mistake again. I just don't understand how you could cheat on your father if you love him so much." Casey was surprised. "He always treated you with love and respect. Something went Jonathan. I asked myself this question," Stacy admitted. "I think I've started to take your father for granted. I knew that he loved me, and I was very confident in this love. This somehow resulted in attempts to try another man. Maybe because I knew that I had a reliable back at home. Jonathan was my anchor. He was always there for me. I foolishly believed that he would always be there. I could have gone a little astray, and he would not have known about it, and still, my devoted husband would have been at home. I pray that you find a man like Jonathan when you are ready to start a family and use my experience as a cautionary tale. Never take more than you give in a relationship. Be faithful, dedicated, and honest. If you are thinking about something that could harm your relationship, discuss it with your husband. I showed you what happens when you lie and cheat sometimes." Stacy would run into Patty during lunch sometimes. She was surprised by how much she liked this woman. She also felt embarrassed that she was anxiously awaiting any news regarding Jonathan. Casey didn't want to tell Stacy too much about her father. As his daughter, she could not be privy to some of the more personal aspects of his life. Patty willingly discussed Jonathan with her friends. "Stacy, it's obvious that you still love Jonathan," Patty remarked one day while the two women were having lunch. "He never says anything bad about you, but it's obvious that you offended him greatly. I'm not here to judge you, but I have to say that I would never cheat if I was in a relationship. I find it hard to believe you did this. Everything I see and hear from you says that you love and respect him. I would encourage you to remember this when the flame of passion fades and you are caught up in everyday life." "I lost my way and paid for it," Stacy replied. "Love isn't always about wild sex and great vacations, sometimes it's trying to decide when to pump out the septic tank or what color to paint the house. Everything becomes ordinary, but that's normal. Jonathan is an honest businessman, a caring, loyal friend, and a great father. I will always love him, but I betrayed him in the worst way a wife can. I learned my lesson. Perhaps I woke up too late. I told Jonathan last night that I was accepting a position in Seattle and would be leaving in 2 weeks. This is a great opportunity for me. I told him from the beginning that I put my career first, but I see that my news upset him, Patty said. I'm telling you this so you know what he's going through and maybe help him if he gets depressed. He's a really great guy, he's just not my forever boyfriend. I'm sure he will miss you very much. Jonathan doesn't do anything on a whim. If he invited you to live with him, it means he has a very high opinion of you as a person. In addition to your beauty. At the same time, he is a St. Jonathan person. I tested his strength, but he survived. He's really improved, Stacy started with a small smile. He'll miss you, but he's a great catch, and I doubt his bed will be empty for very long. Yes, that's why I give you the information first, Patty replied with a smile of her own. What you do with it depends only on you. Only a week had passed when Jonathan's best friend and secret partner, Dan, asked Stacy to meet him for lunch at the bistro. The room was crowded, but they found a small table to the side. After the usual greetings and formalities, Dan explained the reason for his request for a meeting. You know that piece of land that Jonathan bought on Route 21, near the river? I have a buyer willing to pay almost $2 million for it. Jonathan bought it for next to nothing. The profit will be huge. Your third will be more than $500,000. Jonathan said that this land can be bought, and someday it will be very expensive. Is he going to sell it? Stacy asked, wondering how she was participating in the discussion. That's the problem, Dan replied. He says he thinks the company will get more benefit if they offer it for a long-term lease. He would like the contract to stipulate that his company will build what the tenant needs for his business. That sounds like Jonathan, Stacy admitted with a smile, thinking about how businesslike and smart he was. I'm sure he's done the math, and his plan will be more profitable in the long run. What is the problem? I think we need to make a quick profit by selling the land. Planning 10 to 15 years ahead is great, but I'd like to get the money now. You own a third of the company, I own a third. Together, we could insist that Jonathan accept the offer and then pay us our share of the profits. Jonathan won't get hurt, hell, he'll get $500,000 in cash to calm any ruffled feathers, Dan proposed. Stacy felt her anger rising as she listened to Dan make his proposal. Are you asking me to betray Jonathan's trust? You think money means more to me than Jonathan's ruffled feathers, as you call it? Let me tell you something, Jonathan would take this as a complete and utter betrayal by his wife and best friend. This is the worst thing you could do for him, worse than his wife having sex with some young guy at a conference, teased Dan. You're his ex-wife for a reason, you've already betrayed him. He divorced your cheating ass. This is a chance to get a little revenge and at the same time get a good amount of money, Dan reasoned. That about a faithful wife won't fly, we both know that description doesn't suit you. I betrayed Jonathan, and I admit it, Stacy replied in suppressed rage. I was stupid, and selfish, but I never wanted to hurt him. He's better than both of us and deserves much better business partners than both of us will ever be. That's why I will never betray him again. I'd rather lose my last penny than hurt Jonathan like that. I proved that I was a lousy wife, and you just proved that you are a bad friend and partner. Jonathan will control my share of the company as long as I breathe. In fact, I'll be making a new will to make sure Jonathan gets my share after I die. You should know better than to doubt his business skills, Stacy started angrily, standing up and placing a bill on the table to cover her half-eaten lunch. Then she looked into Dan's eyes. Please don't try to steal this too. Almost a month later, Stacy opened the door and saw Jonathan standing on the porch. She was very surprised. Jonathan had studiously avoided her since the morning she returned from the ill-fated conference. Jonathan, come in. Everything is fine. Casey left a few minutes ago if you're looking for her, Stacy said, surprised at how excited she was about Jonathan's presence right now. I'm here to talk, if you have time, Jonathan began, entering the house that had been his for over 15 years. Can you give me a few minutes? If you're busy, I'll try another time. I'm not busy, Stacy answered quickly, and I just made coffee. Why don't we sit in the kitchen? I appreciate you taking me in so quickly, Jonathan said, picking up his coffee mug. You always made excellent coffee. When we first got married, I didn't even know how to cook it. Stacy answered with a grin. It took me a while to get it right. I didn't marry you for the coffee. You had other attributes that I found much more attractive, Jonathan countered. I've never heard you call them attributes. But I heard you call them Smith and Wesson several times, Stacy said, still smiling. Yeah, you brought out the big guns, and I was powerless to resist you, Jonathan admitted. Patty must have you wrapped around her finger or some part of her body, Stacy said. There's some serious heat coming from her. I appreciate how well you treated Patty. She thinks you're a wonderful person. Her opinion of you is one of the reasons why I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, one of her friends overheard your conversation with Dan over lunch. Patty talked about this before heading to the West Coast. She thinks your dedication and honesty have been exceptional. I have to agree. After the way I treated you in the divorce, you still flatly rejected Dan. Many women whose husbands divorced them so quickly would want to take revenge or at least repay. I would never do that to you, Jonathan. I know how hard you work on your projects and how much they mean to you. I also know that you will make sure that this land brings in much more income than Dan is looking for. He's a fool to doubt you, Stacy concluded. I appreciate your vote of confidence. Patty helped me accept the fact that you were my partner, even though I ran the business as if it were all mine. I have to give you the opportunity to express your opinion and say what you want to do, said Jonathan. If you want to sell this property and split the profits, I will agree. Dan is trying to convince me to sell it, Jonathan said. I think he doesn't have enough money. He believes that if we sell this land, then each of us will be able to get $500,000 out of the business without infringing on him. Would you like this too? I think you probably have a plan for this property that will bring good profits to the company and goodwill from the community, Stacy replied with obvious pride. You were never looking for a quick profit. I always wanted to improve the area and make good money at the same time. You have something planned for this area, right? I was negotiating a long-term lease with General Hospital to build an emergency care complex on this site, Jonathan admitted. It won't be as profitable as the luxury condominium project Dan's company is pushing to build, but it will still make a good profit, and we'll have a contract to build it. This will create jobs as well as goodwill. I guessed it would be something like this, Stacy answered a little smugly. You are a good businessman, but you also invest in society. That's what sets you apart from people like Dan. Dan thinks it's better to make a quick profit. I don't agree with this line of thinking. As far as I understand, he came to you to propose his idea, and you refused him. I trust you unconditionally, Jonathan. You never gave me a reason not to trust you. I will support your business decisions until the end, Stacy promised. It probably sounds strange when you already know you can't trust me, but it's true. I was thinking about how Dan is trying to interfere with your business. It occurred to me that we should buy him back. If he doesn't have the money, he'll probably listen to a reasonable offer. He will be happy, and you will be able to run your business as you see fit, Stacy reasoned. I've thought about it, but I don't have the capital to make it happen, Jonathan agreed. We could sell this house, Stacy suggested. I can get a nice 2-bedroom apartment for Casey and me. Over the years, we have accumulated a lot of capital. The house is almost paid for, and you've made some major improvements. This will be enough for us to buy out Dan's share. Now that we're divorced, this is your home. Are you ready to sell it and invest money in the business? Jonathan asked incredulously. I don't know how soon I'll close the deal on the urgent care center. I cannot guarantee that you will get your money back anytime soon or even that you will get it at all. Do I look worried? Stacy joked. Don't forget that I was married to you for 20 years. You will get everything back with interest. If for some reason you don't, do this. It's okay. I owe you one, Jonathan. Money will never make up for my disrespect, but it will get you away from Dan. I'll agree to this if you come and live in the house by the lake with me and Casey, Jonathan said. And then quickly added, you will have your own room with a bathroom. It turned out very nice. I don't think this will work, Stacy answered sadly. It's a matter of personal life, not to mention dating and all the drama that will create for you. Sorry, I didn't think about your social life, Jonathan apologized. Of course, you wouldn't want to bring a gentleman into the house when your ex-husband lives there, especially that guy Nick. It would be awkward. I don't go on dates, and I don't plan on starting, Stacy replied. I stopped going to conferences and haven't spoken to Nick since that disastrous trip. It is you who will experience the inconvenience. No woman wants to spend the night with you when your ex is sleeping in the next room. If I'm around, it will be extremely unlikely that you will find a woman who will agree to move in with you. Although I do not rule out the possibility. I've seen women fall in love with you. I divorced you because you slept with that guy, and then I moved Patty in with me. My behavior wasn't the best example for Casey, was it? Jonathan asked rhetorically. My only excuse is that I was depressed and lonely. Another man took my wife away from me, and my self-confidence was pretty low. Patty was able to store it for me. I'm sorry I damaged your self-esteem. I wish this had never happened, but I don't blame you for falling for Patty. She is a wonderful woman. You are a single man and can enter into any relationship you want, Stacy said and added, I don't think I've ever apologized properly for my behavior. It was not something you caused or created, this is all on my conscience. I truly screwed up, and I'm truly sorry for the pain and inconvenience I caused you. You really hurt me, Stacy. I've never been unfaithful, I live for you and Casey. I went from having everything to feeling like a complete failure, Jonathan admitted. Patty helped me understand that while I may not have been the perfect husband, I wasn't the reason you cheated. You could have told me that you were not happy with our marriage or our sex life, or anything. I would have tried to do better if I had known. I was just stupid, not unhappy. You were a very good husband, a great father to Casey, and a great lover, Stacy said. I have lost my way and deserve to be unhappy. It sounds strange, but being unhappy makes me happy. I feel like I'm paying for my sins. Maybe you'll at least come and look at the house by the lake? Asked Jonathan. I would like to show it and get your opinion. I took some of the ideas we've discussed all these years into the rebuild. I think you'll approve. Casey has a volleyball match in 2 hours. Can I take advantage of this offer another time? Stacy asked. Let's look at it before the match. We can go there together, Jonathan suggested. And then I'll drop you here. Aren't you afraid that people will think we're back together if we go as a couple? You usually sit as far away from me as possible, Stacy noted. Yeah, I was a bit of an ass, but in my defense, you left me in our marriage. You couldn't expect me to be cordial to you, Jonathan said. Actually, you were much kinder to me than I would have been to you if things had been the other way around, Stacy admitted. Your settlement offer was too generous. We both know it. Looks like that kindness is paying off, Jonathan grumbled. We're thinking of selling the house to buy out Dan's share. I still find it hard to believe that you're ready to do this. Honestly, Jonathan, you can take anything of mine that you want. You have always been honest with me. I know that you will not harm me, although I deserve it, Stacy said. Let me show you the lake house, Jonathan suggested, to change the subject and give himself time to calm his emotions. While Jonathan showed the house, Stacy admired the renovation. You really did a great job. Casey's room is very large, and she has her own bathroom. This is the dream of every teenage girl, Stacy remarked. When Jonathan showed Stacy the second bedroom, she felt it was time to talk about the elephant in the room. It's a lovely room with another amazing bathroom, but I can't stay here, Jonathan. It will be too painful for me to see you every day and remember what I've lost. We will sell the house, and I will rent an apartment. I'll be fine. We have to leave soon for Casey's match, Stacy said. Let me show you the master bedroom, Jonathan urged. She's bigger than the rest. I know you'll like it. She's beautiful. You did a great job as always, Stacy praised, looking around the bedroom. That's why your business is so successful. You have an eye for detail. Would you stay with me and Casey if you had this room? Jonathan asked sharply. I would still see you every day, and I don't think I could stand it, Stacy answered sadly. I didn't mean that she would be yours alone, Jonathan explained nervously. I thought maybe we could share it. Stacy raised her eyebrows, studying Jonathan's face. Are you asking me to share your bed? Ever since the day I found out you cheated and I left home, I felt like crap. I miss you so much that sometimes it hurts. You screwed up big time, but I slept with Patty for months. This softened your betrayal a little but did not get rid of it. I wonder if we can get over all this crap and try to be together again. I don't want to be your prey, Stacy answered firmly. If you want to punish me even more, I won't do it. If I move in with you, I will be completely faithful and expect the same from you. No more young beauties in your bed. It will be just me there, or I will be gone in an instant. I have worked hard to regain my self-respect, and I intend to maintain it. I love you, Jonathan, but you have to be completely on board, or I'm leaving. No one was more surprised than Casey when her parents walked into the gym arm in arm. She hurried to them to talk to them without anyone hearing. Mother, Dad, does it mean that Casey began, but Jonathan smiled and nodded before she could finish her question. Casey hugged her mother and held her close as she spoke into her ear, "Welcome home, Mom. I love you, but don't ever cheat on Dad again. I have a friend with a single aunt who is even more beautiful than Patty. What do you think of our story today? I thought it was quite interesting. The man did a really manly thing. What do you think? Write in the comments. See you in the next videos.